Walk at journal page 43. Solving equations by taking square roots. The square root of a non-negative number a is the real number b, such that b squared equals a. Since 4 squared equals 16 and negative 4 squared equals 16, the square root of 16 is 4 and negative 4. Steps to solve ax squared minus c equals 0. So we're going to add c to both sides. Negative c plus c is 0. You get ax squared equals c. Divide both sides by a. A divided by a is 1. You have x squared equals c divided by a. Now you're going to take the square root of both sides, which is plus or minus. The square root cancels the squared, so you're left with x equals plus or minus the square root of c divided by a. All right, go ahead and finish up that. Let's look at the next. Okay, steps to solve a times x plus b squared equals c. So the first step is we're going to divide both sides by a. A divided by a is 1. So you have x plus b squared equals c divided by a. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, that's plus or minus. That cancels the squared. You have x plus b equals plus or minus the square root of c divided by a. We're going to subtract b from both sides. That becomes 0. You get x equals, now I'm going to go ahead and put the negative b in the front. So that's negative b plus or minus the square root of c divided by a. Okay, let's look at the first example. Example 1. Solve the equation 2x squared minus 8 equals 22. Enter the answer in exact form and approximate form to 2 decimal places. Okay, so we're going to add 8 to both sides. So it becomes 0. You get 2x squared equals 30. Divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You get x squared equals 15. Take the square root of both sides. Remember, that's plus or minus. Okay, that cancels the squared. You have x equals the square root of 15, and x equals negative square root of 15. Okay, go and finish up example 1. All right, take a look at example 2. Solve the equation 6x squared minus 7 equals 17. Enter the answer in exact form and approximate form to decimal places. Oh, almost forgot. I have the exact form here, but I need the approximate form here. So we're going to put the square root of 15 in our calculator. So I'm going to press Control x squared 15, enter, and then negative Control square root of 15. So x equals 3.87 and x, say approximately, that's the approximate symbol, negative 3.87. All right, now let's move on to example 2. All right, example 2. Solve the equation 6x squared minus 7 equals 17. Enter the answers in exact form and approximate form to 2 decimal places. Okay, so we're going to add 7 to both sides. That becomes 0. You get 6x squared equals 24. Okay, divide both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. You get x squared equals 4. Take the square root of both sides, plus or minus. That cancels. You get x equals 2 and x equals negative 2. All right, let's go and look at the next example. All right, example 3. Solve the equation 6 minus 1 half x squared equals negative 19. Enter the answers in exact form and approximate form to 2 decimal places. Okay, the first step is we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. That becomes 0. You get negative 1 half x squared equals negative 25. We're going to multiply both sides by negative 2. That becomes 2 divided by 2x squared equals 50. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You get x squared equal to 50. Okay, now we're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, that's plus or minus. Okay, so then that's x equals the plus or minus square root of 50. All right, now we can reduce the square root of 50. Okay, now the way to do that, we need to figure out if 40 will go into a perfect square. Okay, so we're going to divide 50 into perfect squares. So 50 divided by the first perfect square is 1, but that doesn't help us. Let's try 50 divided by 4. That doesn't work. 50 divided by 9. That doesn't work. 50 divided by 16. That doesn't work. 50 divided by 25. That works. So we can write the square x equals plus or minus the square root of 50 as the square root of 25 times 2. Okay. Now, whenever you're taking the square root of two numbers multiplied in the square root, you can take the square root separately. So we can do the square root of 25. We can do the square root of 25 times the square root of 2. Okay, well, that's x equals plus or minus the square root of 25 is 5 times the square root of 2. So x equals 5 square roots of 2. X equals negative 5 square roots of 2. Now, we want to get what that approximately is. So we're going to put that in our calculator. So 5 control square root of 2 and negative 5 control square roots of 2. So x is approximately 7.07 and negative 7.07. Okay. Go ahead and finish up example 3. All right, example 4. Solve the equation 53 minus 3x squared equals 55. Enter the answers in exact form and approximate form to 2 decimal places. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract 53 from both sides. And that becomes 0. You get negative 3x squared equals 2. We're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Divide them becomes 1. You get x squared equals negative 2 divided by 3. We're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, that's plus or minus, so that cancels. You get x equals. Now, when you take the square root of a negative number, watch what happens, okay? So if I try to take the square root, let's just use -1. It says a non-real number, okay? So if you were to do control square root of -2 divided by 3, you're going to get that it's a non-real number, okay? So the way we do that is when we have this, we write it as x equals I times square roots of 2 square roots of 3, and I equals -I root of 2 divided by 3. All right, go and finish up example 4. All right, example 6. Solve the equation 3 times x minus 4 squared equals 6. Okay, so the first step is you're going to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. You get x minus 4 squared equals 2. We're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, that's plus or minus. Cancel, then we get x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 2. Okay, we're going to add 4 to both sides. So this becomes 0. You get x equals 4 plus the square root of 2, and x equals 4 minus the square root of 2. Now let's get the approximate. So we're going to use our calculator. So 4 plus control square roots of 2, and 4 minus control square roots of 2. So that's 5.41 and 2.59. All right, go ahead and finish up example 6. Let's take a look at example 7. Solve the equation x plus 1 squared equals 100. Enter the answers in exact form and approximate form to 2 decimal places. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take the square root of both sides. That cancels. You get x plus 11 equals, now the square root of 100 is 10, so that's plus or minus 10. Okay, so we're going to subtract 11 from both sides. So then you get x equals -11 plus or minus 10. So x equals -11 plus 10, which equals -1, and x equals -11 minus 10, which equals -21. All right, go and finish up example 7. All right, example 8. Solve the equation 2 times x plus 1 squared equals 32. And enter the form in exact form and approximate form. So the first thing we're going to do is divide 2 by both sides. Divide them to 1. You get x plus 1 squared equals 16. We're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, plus or minus. So that cancels. You get x plus 1 equals, square root of 16 is 4, so that's plus or minus 4. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So you get x equals -1 plus or minus 4. So x equals -1 plus 4, which equals 3, and x equals -1 minus 4, which equals -5. All right, go and finish up example 8. Let's take a look at example 9. Solve the equation 2/3 times x minus 50 squared equals 6. Enter the answer in exact form and approximate form to 2 decimal places. So the first thing we can do is multiply both sides by 3 divided by 2. Well, 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6 times x minus 50 squared equals 3 times 6 is 18 divided by 2. Now, 6 divided by 6 is 1, so you're left with x minus 50 squared equals 9. Take the square root of both sides, plus or minus. That cancels. You get x minus 50 equals plus or minus 3. Add 50 to both sides. You get x equals 50 plus or minus 3. So x equals 50 plus 3, which equals 53. And x equals 50 minus 3, which equals 47. All right, we're going to finish up example 9. All right, example 10. Example 11. Last example. For a scene in a movie, a sack of money is dropped from the roof of a 500-foot skyscraper. The height of the sack above the ground in feet is given by h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 500. Where t is the time in seconds, how long will it take the sack to reach the ground? So we need to set negative 16 t squared plus 500 equal to 0. Okay, and then we're going to solve. So we're going to first subtract 500 from both sides. That becomes 0. You get negative 16 t squared equals negative 500. We're going to divide both sides by negative 16. That divides and becomes 1. To get t squared equals, let's use our calculator, negative 500 divided by negative 16 is 125 divided by 4. Okay, I'm going to press Control Enter, see what the decimal looks like. 31.25. Okay, so I'm going to use that 31.25. Okay, so now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, plus or minus. So t equals, and let's go and take the square root. So use our calculator. Control square root of 31.25 is plus or minus. Now we're going to round to the nearest tenth. That's one decimal place. So 5.6. So t equals 5.6 seconds, and t equals negative 5.6 seconds. Now, since you can't have negative time, that answer we ignore, and so our answer is 5.6 seconds. So it will take approximately 5.6 seconds to reach the ground. Okay, go ahead and finish up your example, start working on your assignment, and have a wonderful Wildcat day.